Hey everybody, what's going on? Dr. Kramer over at Hope Upper Cervical Spine Center. And today we are going to do a upper cervical case review on a patient who has been going through our care for roughly about 4 months at this point in her journey. And she originally came to us with a 30-year history of migraines. Now, what's really fascinating about this is most people who have migraines for this long typically get them around the start of menstruation when they start that at the puberty age. And it also follows them throughout their life. They try many things and they eventually arrive at an understanding to where it is either one, a chemical problem where they think it's related to dehydration, or it's related to, alcohol intake or, biophysiology, things along those lines. So they recognize that there are dietary triggers that will cause them to have a problem. The other case that they present with is this idea that maybe it's because of, what's going on with Botox or what's going on with their monthly cycle, right? And so this specific person I met at an event, we started having a conversation and she was asking me what I do. I told her that I was an upper cervical chiropractor. And she said, well, how are you different than a full spine doctor? And I said, there's a loaded question to go through. And I asked her, I said, why do you go to a chiropractor? She said, well, my husband started making me go and that, she suffers from migraines, but, that really hasn't changed with chiropractic care. She just likes how she feels after. I said, okay, that's great. That's awesome. I said, what if I told you I could help you with your migraines? And she goes, well, that would be amazing. I said, okay, well, let's do a consult, right? Well, a couple weeks go by in my life and the lady comes by my office. We do some baseline neurological testing, which is done inside of our office. We find that she would be a great candidate for care. And we, let her know that her structure is actually at the root cause of her migraines. And, her discussion with me is really. So today I'm going to walk you through a case because recently her success has been more than just the elimination of migraines. She's had a complete reduction of the torsion or the spinal pain that she felt in her thoracic spine, which would be this area down here where my mouse is going over, right between the shoulder blades kind of situation. But on this film on the right-hand side where my mouse is at, let's go this side over here. What we're going to talk about is the cervical structure. And so when I come in here and we look at this film, what you are going to see is that this has two measurements on it, the 12.31 and the 3.7. Now, when I look at a cervical spine and I see this, I see someone who is suffering neurologically, right? This is not a normal curvature. Here's a little bit of degeneration. Here's a little bit of degeneration on the front. Disc is a little rough in here. But this just shows us that her spine is compensating for a long-standing problem that exists at this level where my mouse is going, right? So that's going to be right up here. This problem is not, this is a very, very bad neck, right? What I do know and what we know throughout our history of upper cervical care is that this number on the top should reach a pitch, meaning that if I were to take my hand and raise it up or tilt it down, we should have a pitch of somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees. We are at 12.31 when we started care. Also, if we had an 18 to 22 angle at this position, the number down here should be somewhere between 20 and 35 degrees. Cool. This over here is an updated film. We took this film roughly last month. No, actually this month. We took it last week, March 3rd. And if you look at this, what you will notice is that there is a gentle restoration of the normal curvature of her cervical spine. We should have a C here, right? This degeneration is never going to go away. That's still there, but the disc looks a little bit better because we have a little more optimal stress on the way the spine is oriented. And you'll see that there's a restoration of roughly, 12 degrees into her cervical curve and a nice almost 7 degrees on her C1 planar angle. So this just shows me that expectations for care are favorable. At this point, she's let us know that the tension between her shoulder blades has almost completely resolved. And her migraines, they're still happening, but they're self-induced at this point, just based upon the stress she is subjected to at this phase in her life, right? So what we're seeing on this and what we're trying to pay attention to is that when somebody has an underlying neurological problem, their spine will also mimic that underlying neurological problem. And when you restore normal neurological performance, the spine will also restore into a normal spinal curvature. The second film I want to show you is called an AP open mouth. Now, all I want you to know out of this is if I take my greater number, 32.67, let's call it 32.7, minus my lesser number, 31.7, you're going to get 1 millimeter. On this film, 32.54 minus 32.47, you're going to get roughly 0.1 millimeters. What this shows us is that her C1 vertebrae translated to the left. On this film, it shows that it is still a little bit left, but our normative value is, if we take greater minus lesser, we're looking for 0.3. In this case, we had a 1 millimeter translation. In this case, we have a reduction of that millimeter translation down to a 0.1 millimeter translation, more like 0.07, right, is what we're looking at. And so what we see on this is this great change in her overall spinal structure. Shoulders are more level, spine is looking really healthy through here. We have really good alignment. Head's not tilted to the left, right? We see all these nice, good changes. The last thing that I want to show you all is that when we have a migraine-based patient, most headaches are going to be correlated to a rotation of the atlas bone. In her case, she had a 1 degree anterior rotation, which has now been restored and resolved back to a 90 degree normal. So what we can take away from this and what we're trying to glean from this information that is being shared with you today is that when we are giving the right adjustment at the right time, at the right place, and then we are respecting the normal process of neurological healing, over time, your system will restore normal. Normal for her is, hey, every now and then I like to have a glass of wine. I know I'm going to get a migraine because of it. However, I'm not having migraines every single day of the week. My stress regulation is way better. And I also notice that my overall structure feels healthier, allowing me to be the best version of myself. What your takeaway from this is that, hey, if I am a migraine sufferer and my chiropractor doesn't restore my cervical curve, that means that there is a problem that is messed up in my upper cervical spine that needs to be addressed by an upper cervical doctor. Therefore, for those of you who are suffering, I recommend you to go online, go to uppercervicalawareness.com, type in your zip code, find an upper cervical doctor, and have a conversation with them about how upper cervical can transform your life. If you're located in the Fort Worth area of Texas, I'm in Southlake. We offer a great service that can help you restore normal, free of drugs, free of surgery, free of Botox, free of injections. Ultimately, the goal in our office is to allow your body the best and most optimal opportunity to express health. We heal from the inside out by giving the right adjustment at the right time at the right place. The rest of it is allowing your body to heal. I hope this helps you understand a little bit better what we can do in a chiropractic office, especially with the upper cervical spine. We take you from less than ideal to ideal in a very short window, giving you optimal expression of health. Once again, I'm Dr. Kramer. I'm at Hope Upper Cervical Spine Center in Southlake, Texas. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and we'll be glad to get to them and give you some feedback on how upper cervical can change your life.